All right, guys, I had room to squeeze in another late night meditation. So, yes, I am back in Hebrews just for this one video. And we are in chapter 12, verse number 29. And it reads, "For our Alahiym is a consuming fire." So short and simple. Actually, I'm going to highlight that for Paulie, for his Bible verse. For our Alahiym is a consuming fire. Now let's talk about what that might mean. So as I read that, I literally envisioned a flame and fire. And then I said, you know what? Why would Yahuah classify himself as a consuming fire? And then as I did that, then I said, you know what? Think about this, people. Okay, so the context of this verse has to do with faith, and, we have to remember that there are those of us that are trying to live righteous and that our only opponent is sin. We are constantly struggling with sin, constantly being tempted by sin. So how would we get rid of sin in order to have an intimacy with Yahuah? Because as we know, he has told us several times that he does not mix with darkness. He does not mix with bad things, with sin. So in order to have that relationship with him, we would have to not be in sin. So if he is a consuming fire, or refiner's fire, rather, what would he do to help us get rid of sin? He would probably burn it away, right? It's a symbolic thing. But so think of sin being burnt away in order for us to be cleansed, right? For our hearts to be cleansed, circumcised, for the sin to be purged off or eliminated. Think of that. Think of that. It's not to be related to us burning in agony, but rather burned to be cleansed. Now, you can look up, what fire means spiritually. And spiritually, fire is a cleansing type of thing. It may look scary. It may cause fear, especially like in real life, like if something was on fire or something. But spiritually, when talking about Yahuah and him being a consuming fire, it is him being like a cleansing agent, a cleansing Aluah that will burn away anything that should not be. So think about this. Would you ever put your hand in fire and then blame fire for burning you? You know that it is fire's job to bring forth heat and to cause things to get, hot, or to cleanse things. There are people that work in certain industries where they sharpen their knives and their swords using fire and iron. You know what I mean? So we have to think of that as a way to shape and mold us by being a consuming fire, and to mold us into how we want to be, but also to burn away the sin or what should not be there. And another way to look at this, and I always think that it's good to use analogies so that help people to understand better. So think of this. If you were ever like out living off the land or camping or something like that, and you needed water from like a lake, the lake has parasites, probably some amoebas, some bacteria and stuff in there that, you probably shouldn't ingest. You would take the water and you would bring it, you would create a fire, right? You would create a fire and then boil the water in hopes that all of those unclean parasites and bacteria that can cause harm will be dead, right? To get rid of that. So think of that as being sin. Think of the water being the good part, our bodies, right? Our body is water. We're the body of the Mashiach. And, he says he is the water. He's life. And just think of that. And then think of, us having sin in there. So like all those things, we may not be able to see them, but we know they're there. We know they exist. So you would need fire to purge or to cleanse or to make that water where it won't hurt you, where it's clean, where you're able to consume it. So that is what we need to think about when we want to have a relationship with him. We cannot just come to him in sin. And when I say that, I mean, yes, obviously we all start in sin before we come to him, and then he cleanses us and saves us and delivers us. But what I mean is, if you are already with him, if you already have an intimacy with him, and then you fall into sin, you are pushing him away. Or you're going to get yourself burnt, because he says that he chastises his children. He says that when he loves his children, they will be chastised. They will have to deal with take accountability for their actions. But he does this out of love. So I just wanted to emphasize that. I thought that was pretty cool. So just like how fire, may burn you, because that's what fire does, Yahuah will also consume your sin. And it may not be something that you think is a pleasant thing. I mean, just think about how it might come about. Maybe it might leave you without friends because of the sin that he's consuming. Maybe it might leave you having sleepless nights because maybe there was an addiction that was forming. I mean, if we're talking about like drugs or drinking or something like that. But that burn, that pain that you do feel, it is refining you. It is shaping you and molding you into a better person. Without that fire, you would have been, polluted with sin and all these unclean things. So he is using that fire, that's his element. That's what he is, to get rid of what shouldn't be there. He only does this with those that accept him and that want to have a relationship with him. For everyone else, he does give free will. But if you choose free will over his will, then you have to expect that there will be consequences. And the consequence is everlasting eternity in fire. So it's not just like burning away sin, but it's your sin forever being burned, stuck in the lake of fire. And I know that sounds terrible, but that's exactly what hell is. That's what the lake of fire is, the abyss. That's what he talks about. So for those that chose not to turn from their sin, not to stop committing abominations, not to love him and not to keep his commandments and not to say sorry and seek forgiveness and try to change and try to get to know him and try to call on his name and try to pray, intercede, and all these numbers of things, he's the consuming fire, but they will literally be consuming premium lava for the rest of their lives. And I try to put a little joke in there, but it's not a joke in the matter. It's sad. So just understand that he is the consuming fire, and hell, he created that place. That is everything good and everything evil and everything amazing and excellent. Everything is all created by him. He is that consuming fire. Excuse me. So you have to understand that. Are you willing to just get burnt so that you're able to accept him and to be cleansed? and shapen and molded into how he wants you to be, aligned with him? Are you willing to keep living how you're living so that ultimately you will be, you know, your eternity will be in hell, where there is fire all the time, 24/7, forever? You have to make that choice. For our Alahiym is a consuming fire.